Well, I was talking about Pastor Anderson and his refutation of what has been understood to me through my research as a strong Greek translation, which is a more original translation. The word that is being used is sozo menoi, and I can try to spell that for you if those people out there who are wanting to investigate this, just wanting to investigate it further. But how you spell it in English into Greek is SOZOMENOIS, being saved. You can look up the King James, or you can look up the Catholic version, the New International Version, which I thought was... I've always been told the International Version was, oh, you don't want to read that. That's misinterpretation. But I got my New International Version out to compare, and it said it almost verbatim of what the Greek... I mean, the essential, what we read in the second segment, we see a consistency in the New International Version. I'm not saying that happens with everything. I'm just saying 1 Corinthians 1:18, we have a perfect example, the example that Mr. Anderson wants to bring to us, that when we read the Greek, we're not reading it correctly. Really. I don't understand that. How can you take a Latin from Greek, right, into Greek, back into German, into English, and accept that the scholars of James I had any understanding at that point, any understanding of the original text, especially when James I is trying to unite a country, not only against the Pope at the time, who was relying on these Greek texts, right? Pope is the one you're supposed to go to, not the king or the monarchy. So James he wanted to bring the Church of England and Scotland together. The gunpowder plot had already given him enough information that the Catholics wanted him dead. He was in apostasy, right? I mean, that's what he's thinking. He's trying to preserve the House of Stuart. The Tudor line is gone. There's a lot riding on this young man's shoulders. People were plotting against him. A huge amount of people. He was trying to... He couldn't get done anything that he wanted to get done without incorporating the English Catholics. A huge part. It's politically savvy to incorporate the Catholics into your agenda. And the only real way to do that is to get in English something that... because the English Catholics, most of the English weren't educated. And they posed this position that, hey, we're just trying to educate the working man, the peasant. Well, if they're trying to educate the peasant into what the religious doctrine, the truth of the religious doctrine, then why not just throw money into their education? Right? Well, that's this anti-libertarian view you say nowadays. This Trotsky idea that will never work, this Trotsky utopian that the libertarians tend to cling on to. But you have to understand that in order to get these people to join you, you have to educate them. And what better way to educate them than to give them a book that has been interpreted falsely and is directly aligned with Calvinist and Anglican views. I mean, what were the Anglicans? They were like this crypto-Catholic, I believe, is what they... Crypto-Catholic, or Neo-Catholic. They weren't hardcore Catholics, guys. They were Anglican. They had separated themselves. I mean, 3 generations back. So you had 3 or 4 generations of children being born that were Anglican, went to an Anglican church. That's enough time to change. And Calvin was extremely good at changing children, at changing the populace's view. They had perfected it. You should definitely read things about Calvin. Man, talk about Pavlov's dog. Whew. That's a whole nother level. So, we have with the clergy, I guess in 1603, the Puritan clergy demand the abolition of the confirmation of wedding rings, the term priest, among other things, and that the wearing of a cap and surplice became optional. So the clerical garb. So no longer are you being a representative of the church with your garments, because in the Protestant faith, and Pastor Anderson would agree with me, they say that long dresses, wearing long dresses and long hair, is an abomination. You know, it's really crazy if you go back to, and you're studying the history of all these denominations that fall from the Protestant Revolution. You see the Lutherans, Calvinists, these Methodists, Anglicans, and then you have all these separation in England. You have the Quakers, the Puritans, and then when James is setting up the first Jamestown, right here in America, you see this later push towards Mormonism, right? Here you have this Puritan who goes out in the woods, finds some emerald scrolls. It says that God, Michael or Gabriel or whatever angel came down and showed him, etc. If this is very subjective approach to Christianity. I mean, it just gets watered down and watered down and watered down. Why the RLDS? Why haven't you guys seen this? Why are you so adamant about setting yourselves up for failure by only listening or reading from the King James Version, which, in my research, has shown that is completely not only been falsified through its translation, but not only literally falsified, but politically motivated. Then, later on in the historical context, you can see in Americas during the Industrial Revolution, Rothschilds, or was it the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers? I believe it was the Rockefellers who had given money to Schofield to change it even more, as if that craziness wasn't enough. See, I believe that they had known this had happened. They researched and they found this information is to be true. And they said, what better way than to change the habits of a society than by changing the text that they read from. Now, not only can we move from a process of being saved to saved, now we can move to the process, or the idea that whatever you decide can still be Christian. Right? It continues to follow down this relative path, which is heresy. Guys, this is heresy. It just seems it's illogical to think that you're gonna find any kind of pure divine essence in something that has been manipulated by man so much. Well, it was inspired. Yeah, I'm sure it was inspired by man. But how do you delineate that? So, this translation, one interesting illogical notion that I'd like to add here is the King James Version was inspired, right? On top of an inspiration? Why wouldn't God think that the inspiration of the original text was more important? Think about that. You're essentially saying that your Bible is inspired by a previous inspired book. Why wouldn't God just inspire it one time? It's illogical. God is omnipresent, omnipotent. Does not live in the concept of time and what we understand as time. Why would that even be relevant? Right? It would just be one time and that's it. There's no need, because if you had to change the text of the original inspired text, then only one of two things can logically be addressed here. Either the original text was not inspired, or yours isn't. Right? And you cannot presuppose that your understanding is the inspired manuscript on something that was previously not inspired. Doesn't make sense. It's illogical. Has no root. Logic demands cause and effect. So, thank you for listening with me here at Spreaker. I'll continue on the fourth